Well, this is the first look at charging stations here at AVEK. The board voted to install these, and they're here. They're called Clipper Creek Electric Vehicle Charge Station, high power. And this is a handle, comes out, plugs in the car. They got these up very fast.
You see the presentation in front of you. Harley, are you going to give the presentation basically, or who's going to give the presentation to Dwayne on the PowerPoint, and kind of give them an overview of what's going on here? But basically, what we're doing right now is we're calling the dealerships, we're calling the corporate office of the manufacturer to see if we can get a car. Some of these cars you can't get because there's like a waiting list to get them. So maybe you can take it off from there.
I can kind of give a little background. The committee asked staff to look at all electric. So these three options that are up on the screen there are completely electric. There's a Honda, a Toyota, and a Ford Focus. Each one of these have different ranges. I mean, you can see the circled numbers, and that was kind of a consideration for staff if they had enough range for us to be utilized here at the office. Our charging stations, I think they're installed. Are they?
They're not energized yet. They're going to test them tomorrow.
Okay, so they will be energized tomorrow. The plan is to lease a vehicle. You can do a 36-month lease, and the numbers that are shown there are leases. And again, these are all electric. There are other vehicles that are available that are gas and electric hybrid, but these are all strictly electric. So the consideration is just the price, what the price is going, what the lease price would be, the charging time, and the range. Or those are the kind of things that I think the committee took a look at. So these are three of the options, and
yeah, that's right, Dan. That's correct. And I'm personally, because I have a little bit of owning an electric car. The charging time is very important, especially if staff is going to use it locally. Any one of these cars will be sufficient to use in the Antelope Valley for day-to-day use, not a problem. But the charging time is very important. So if somebody uses the car, half the power, let's say, in the car, it shows 82 miles range, they can recharge the entire car in 3 hours, where the car next to it, which is the Toyota Rave, it would take 5.5, almost 6 hours to charge the same time. So, I mean, it's unbelievable. You can buy one of these electric cars, or not buy it, lease it. The 36-month prepaid lease cost is only $10,800, which is, I think, comes out to like $289 a month to have these cars. And you can't purchase them. You have to lease these cars. If Holly, maybe you can jump in on this a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct, Director Donato. There are some waiting periods for these options, but we're on lists if we go with whichever one you decide.
So right now we're just kind of table this a little bit so we get some callbacks from the dealerships before we make up our final decision. That's what I'm asking.
Frank, this is Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you good.
Yeah. I think I own a Chevy Volt, and before I bought that, I drove or tested or looked at all the electric vehicles out there within the same price range. And it seems to me that an 82-mile range would limit the ability to adjust the Antelope Valley for our staff. The pricing of a Volt, or not so much a Prius hybrid electric, because they don't have much of a range, but the Volt has a 35-mile range at least, and it then has a 9-gallon gas tank. So it kind of has an unlimited range if staff wanted to take it to LA to a conference or something like that. And then if they drive it around the Antelope Valley on little trips with our charging stations, they would never use gas. And the pricing's about the same. So I'm wondering if the committee looked at the issue of having a gas, electric versus an all-electric.
Yes, I did. And what's happening is, Rob, the hybrids are going out. They'll be phased out within 5 years. And what's happening is that they're no longer a zero emission car. They used to give them benefits. They've taken them out of the diamond lane now, which is 2 people or more. What's happening with them also, if environmentally, if our agency, we're putting those 4 charge stations right in front. You're right, if they go to LA, anywhere they go to LA, whether it's a courthouse or any government facility, as you know, they can charge right there in 3 hours. You're not going down there for an hour visit. You're going to be down there for at least 3 hours. And you have 80 miles to downtown LA. I mean, it's more than sufficient unless they're driving all over LA. You're correct on that. I was under the impression that when we had meetings with them, that this car was not for a specific employee to use for trips. It was only supposed to be used for staff to go to the post office, maybe can go to Lancaster, Farmdale, or the water company to basically meet or whatever, to get basic necessities. I was not told this car was going to be used in 125, 150 plus range, because that's what I was told.
That would hopefully take the place of having to take some of the trucks and the larger vehicles on longer trips when it's just a trip where a car could work. To address your concerns about Diamond Lane, I know the Chevy Volt and the Prius electric still has the Diamond Lane availability. Mine does, and we're continuing to give that to those cars. You're right about strictly hybrid. If they don't have an electric option, then they no longer get the Diamond Lane tags. But the electric cars with the gas option do. So, and it just seems to me, unless we're ready to buy a Tesla, I don't think we are, you don't get the range that would be most beneficial for what the uses could be of this vehicle. Because I'm looking at everything we have here are large trucks, 4-wheel drive. When you take one of those to LA, you're running a whole lot of gas, versus if you took a electric hybrid gas combo, it would be like 1/4 the use of gas on a vehicle like that. And I'm looking at the pricing of these, and it seems to me the pricing is very close to the same for like a Volt or Prius electric vehicle. And like I said,
So, I mean, now, if we're talking about people going beyond the Antelope Valley, that's not what I was told. I was told that this car was to be used strictly in the Antelope Valley. Now, if we're talking about something that's going to be outside the Antelope Valley, then it's a completely different story. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, this car would not even come close to be utilized outside the Antelope Valley. Either one of these cars.
And run to the post office. There's going to be a use, and one of the fully electric ones might work. Will probably. If we say, well, okay, how many hours a month would that be, and so forth? Maybe one car would cover that. An all-electric car would cover that. We did take a quick look at how staff has been using cars, and there are a lot of trips that are a little longer than that. It's like Director Donato said, however you want to use it. If you want it just to be Holly's car to pick up lunch and so forth, go to the post office, it's going to limit how much we would use that car. something that's a hybrid would be a little more versatile. We'd probably use it more. It just kind of depends on what you want to use it for. We can do a little more analysis. We can come back to the board and say, well, these are all the people. We did do a quick cursory look at it, and okay, if we had one person, if Holly and Patty were the only ones using it, this would fit. If we had Dwayne and Dan using it, this would make a better fit. So
had a nice meeting on how to split that up and different options, and we basically had 3 options, but we came back and said we were going to split it into 170, recommend to the board that we split it into 170,000 towards the rebate programs and 30,000 towards educational programs. And that was kind of the recommendation we had, the split of that 200,000. Just quickly ahead, one of the options was put it into the water bank, and we decided that that was not appropriate. But we had a good discussion on that could be an option that they choose as their rebate program. So it still allows that to happen if they want to. But basically, go back before I get my stuff here. I don't know if Wayne wants to say anything on this part, or we just want to. I'm going to move that we split the budget to 170,000 towards our retail customers, rebates, matching of 50/50, and 30,000 into educational activities. Well, to clarify it, the committee was recommending 5,000 for our retail customers. So we're only dealing with those that are serving retailers. We're not dealing with Municipal Max or Antelope Valley Country Club or some of those single customers, but just those that have retail sales. And so 5,000 base, and then the remaining amount would be the historical use. So everybody's going to be guaranteed 5,000. Well, the application talks about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and I know that was a little confusion. I was confused and came in and talked on it. It's like we were giving them an opportunity. If they didn't want to do the whole 5,000, they could do it for 1,000. I think we need to simplify that and say you have up to 5,000. How much do you want to spend? That's one of the changes in there. But we were going to divvy it up 5,000 base plus historic. And that gives everybody, anything under 5,000 was probably not enough for us, even a small organization, to do much. So that is the letter. The application basically tells us what you want to do, follows the guidelines, staff can approve it, and doesn't have to come back to the board for approval. They can monthly bill it in order to get their rebates back after they prove that they spent it. And we need to have a little bit more in there on how we want to evaluate the program. If it was a water savings, what we should do to cover it, or things like that. So I don't know if we really need a motion on that, or just comments and let it go on out, or we don't really have a board action on it.
It sounds like you're still revising it.
I think there's a few little tweaks. Regional Water Conservation Workshop for Saturday, November 1st. Plan to go from about, first speaker probably somewhere around 9, so 8 o'clock until about 1 o'clock. Most people don't stay past about 1 or 1. So we'll do kind of that half-day, 2/3 of the day activity. We kind of have a tentative program already scheduled. I believe our next step is with the date and the tentative. We're going to sit down with staff and send letters out to people that we get letters from, asking us to co-sponsor the activity. The cities, the BIA, military, those types of things. But in general, this will be a very low-cost activity for us because the fair facilities are going to be cheap, no cost to cheap. I mean,
I think the fair's desire is help sponsor.
Right.
What do you think about the BIA and?
They always send us letters to help sponsor some workshops, so we'll send out letters, ask them to help sponsor. And right now, what I'm thinking more in the sponsorship and probably more on help us promote this activity.
You're trying to ask for some?
Back to, I don't know how much real cost we're going to have to this. The speakers are all local, so there's not going to be any speaker cost. Low cost at the fair, so there's a program and publicity and giveaways. That's about it. So I don't see a high cost, so I really have been stuck on a letter out to the BIA on, when it's in send us $1,000 or, what. And to me, it's as much as anything, is put it in your newsletters, promote it. Cities put it in your newsletters and promote it, and maybe you have some connections that we can in lieu with billboards or whatever. So that's probably our next step.
Essentially, there's a flyer in your packet that was essentially, it's kind of a job fair for high school students. We would attend and talk about the virtues of entering into the water operations field, and it's a one-day event. It lasts from about 9 in the morning until about 12:30. So we're looking for authorization to participate and help with this endeavor at the high school district.
We participated this for many years.
We have a motion and second to authorize participation in Salute the Youth on October 9th, 2014. Any more discussion?
Right into water supply, as you know, our allocation is still at 5%, and the percentages of historical levels are continuing to slide a little bit. Oroville's down to 48% of historical levels. San Luis is at 43%. I've been talking about this El Nino that was developing. A month ago, there was an 80% chance of having a real strong El Nino. It's kind of slipped a little bit. Now it's a 65% chance. And my theory is if the Lakers win and you have an El Nino halfway here, this is kind of what it looked like. And this is the variation from normal. And you can see that February through July, the surface temperatures were looking really warm, and that was classic El Nino. But July and August they did below. So, still it's anybody's guess. We're kind of betting on the weather. This is some more numbers, just what the chances of having an El Nino, having a neutral year, or a La Nina. So it's not likely you're going to have a La Nina. It's fairly likely you're going to have an El Nino. Pretty likely you're going to have neutral. So it's, again, they analyze surface temperatures and they say what's the variation between normal and what they get. So it still looks like a fair chance you're going to get them, which generally means colder and wetter.
Hey Dan,
Yes.
I have a question. When people like this are making these kind of predictions, are they doing this after they drink a margarita? I mean, where do they come up with this stuff?
Yeah, I think they'd probably be more accurate if they drank a margarita. If you believe
Wow,
it.
unbelievable. I know, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, meteorologists and climatologists, they love to analyze numbers, so they'll give you all kinds of graphs. This is the the 8 station index that I show you each month, and you can see that we're heading toward a new water year on October 1st. But it looks like right now our precipitation in northern Sierra is 29.7 inches. This is the reservoir conditions, as I mentioned. Oroville is slipping a little bit. San Luis is dropping. It's down to 20% of capacity, or 43% of the historical levels. This is the Oroville chart. Again, kind of a downward trend on Oroville. Continuing. Hopefully, we'll start turning that around here in September. This is San Luis. DWR share is in the dark blue, and Bureau share is in the light blue. And you can see the capacity is quite a bit more than we're proposing. Water banking, all the WSSP2 wells are now online, and they're pumping about 15.5 MGD, which is down just a little bit from what I last reported. Those wells are all going to 80th and age. One thing I wanted to mention, there was a meeting this last week on the county's general plan, and there was some concern by the board. How that would impact our opportunity to do water banking. Is the town and country plan going to affect our water banking? Dwayne attended the meeting. I don't know if you want to make any comments on the planning commission or any other meetings you've had with the county.
Sure, be happy to. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, the regional planning commission met on August 6th. There was 17 individuals that spoke at the particular meeting. There was about 5 to 7 of them that were very supportive. These were primarily the environmental groups, the Audubon Society, other types of groups like that. There were 10 to 12 that were not as supportive, and this is associated with the significant environmental areas. Primarily, they were the BIA, the mining interests, members from the Board of Realtors, and some larger landowners. Also, the Castaic Community Services District had a representative that spoke against expanding the SDAs. The results of the meeting is that the general plan hearing date was continued to October 6th, which was the intent of trying to go down there and speak. They also established, and it's interesting to note that the regional planning commission there, which is approving 2 documents. One is the general plan for all of Los Angeles, and then the AV Town and Country Plan. They're kind of approving, going through the approval processes together, so it's very easy to confuse one with the other because they need to be consistent with each other. And they've established a September 27th date for a public hearing on the AV Town and Country Plan. That's September 27th at Antelope Valley College Theater. That's on a Saturday.
Which word's that?
Antelope Valley College Theater. That theater there. It's on a Saturday, and they'll be taking testimony at that particular time for anybody who would like to talk about the Town and Country Plan or this the area plan for Antelope Valley. He did recommend and that we put a public facilities overlay on property that's owned by AVEK at the present time, so they can identify that as public facilities. That requires that properties that develop around the existing properties have to be consistent with those uses that are currently there.
Say that again.
In other words, there would be a, say for instance, we have property that's zoned A2, A22, or A21, and they would put a public facilities overlay over those particular properties, identifying them as public, owned facilities, so that if development should occur next door for some reason, whether that's solar or some other scenario, they would have to, in their permitting process, they'd have to consider what that use is and make sure that it doesn't impact it.
Okay. That's positive, but one of our big problems is unidentifying the properties, and what the process would be to make sure those met our criteria. It may be very difficult, after this plan's adopted, we want a piece of property for them to go change it without going through a process.
Well,
I don't think it would happen.
Yeah, once again, it's not in writing, so I understand the validity of it. But
One thing is existing, but the other thing is the new, and that could be a big rub.
right, and it was a concern of staff's also. We did get some verbal assurance that it can be changed 4 times a year. They can provide the same kind of overlay zoning on that particular piece of property. However, I think Mr. Riddell has some good information to provide us with regards to Government Code Section 53091, which he provided me, which provides much greater assurance for the agency with regards to future facilities that we may purchase and future costs or impacts from the SDAs.
Well, I think Fort Hill's down just a little bit. Roseman's up just a hair. East side is down just a little bit, down to MGD, and Palmdale connection is 1.8. As I mentioned before, the water bank extractions are going to 80th and H, 55.